kiss for you.
This is a PSA to anyone that's, using a Switch 2 or is thinking about getting a Switch 2, at least currently. The fatal flaw that I perceive the Switch 2 has is going to be pretty apparent when I showcase this video. As this video plays, you'll be seeing all the games that I own on Switch. At the top it says 224, and that is about accurate. Of the 224 Switch games I have, a large quantity of them, as you're seeing, are third-party games. And the Switch 2 can play three types of games. Switch 2 exclusive games, that are things currently like Cyberpunk and Mario Kart World. The enhanced games enhance things like frame rate resolution if they have uncapped frame rate or dynamic resolution scaling. And then the third section is the paid upgrades, right? So the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games. Those are the three kind of options. First one runs great. Mario Kart World runs great. From what I understand, Cyberpunk also runs well. So the Switch 2 versions, exclusives of games, not a problem. The Switch 2 enhanced versions, right? The editions, like Breath of the Wild, I have that one. That's also running great. So no problem there. It's the second camp where you have all these games as I showed here, and you can pause the video and check which ones you have. Of those 224, only 18 of them are actually improved in the Switch 2. A lot of these are based on uncapped frame rates and stuff. So as I go here, you'll be able to see, and I can explain a couple of them. So like XCOM, for instance, is one that ran at a very low resolution, like 540p and like 30 FPS. It now runs at a full 1080 60 locked with vastly improved load times. My Hero 1's Justice 2 as well was at like 540p, 30 FPS, 40 FPS. That was uncapped, so it's now running at a solid 1080 60 with significantly better load times. One Piece Pirate Warriors 4 does not increase the resolution, but it does increase the FPS and substantially fixes the load time issues for that game. Ooblets actually runs at a functional frame rate instead of lagging constantly. Let's see. Game of Life also runs at a consistent 60. Monster Hunter Stories 2 runs at a consistent 60. Bait Chaos 1 and 2 as well also runs at 60. Digimon runs at 60. But all these, of these, My Hero 1, Justice 2, and XCOM, and obviously Ooblets, and then 3D World and Tin Hearts are the ones that run at increased resolution. Bait Chaos doesn't, Game of Life doesn't, Spyro doesn't, Monster Hunter Stories doesn't seem to, Hello Kitty doesn't, Pirate Warriors doesn't, Spider Hack doesn't. So of we're missing Fortnite and Pokemon Unite here, but of my 224 games, only 18 of them actually have any kind of quality when it comes to the increase. That's about 8% of my library. I didn't expect it to be a large quantity, but I was like, 40% feels about right. And that's not the case. And the reason I say this is a PSA is because while there is discussion about this online, there's not nearly as much discussion and much prominence. Most games that you play on Switch 2 from third party or first party are going to be the Switch 1 versions. And you might say, oh, well, obviously they're going to be Switch 1 versions, but you need to understand that that is a critically important problem, I should say, because of how that Switch 2 works. So the chart I made here, this big long thing, was before when it was first revealed, right, what it was going to be, and I was kind of talking about the fact that cross-gen seemed to be more expensive than just buying it baseline and all this. So let's go back here, right, because there's two things I want to mention here. So the first one is that Switch 2, we'll just say Switch 2 is running at 1080p. On the screen, 120 hertz. And all the games that are running at that from Switch 1 back compatibility are running at a max resolution of 720p and 60 hertz. And the issue with that is not only is it just running the Switch 1 game on the Switch 2, but that resolution is not greater. So what you end up having is a very stretched image. Now, the problem, I can't show you this. And I can't show you this for two reasons. One, the HDR screen on the Switch 2 does not let you take screenshots, and screenshots are not really a supported format for HDR a lot of the time, so I can't show you that dynamic range. And the second thing is I'm just going to do 6x compression. And this is an important topic not a bunch of people really know about or kind of comprehend, so let's talk about it. An image, so I'll just place a random image of, say, Mario Kart, right? We have Mario Kart World right here, Switch 2 game, running at that. this image, not this image, but the image that you would see of anyone playing the game or a video of anyone playing the game, at least in my circumstance, has me going through a couple different things. So it has me going to the Switch app on my phone after I take a screenshot. So obviously the first thing is the screenshot tool on the Switch, and then it goes to it goes to the Switch app, and then it goes, and I can take from the Switch app and I can quick share it to my PC, which is how right here, quick share, where things on my quick share get saved. So I can do that, and then I can put it into my editing software, which is DaVinci. DaVinci renders it out, AV1 encodes, and then YouTube compression takes it over from there. So as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different levels that this image is changing between my eyes and you actually seeing it. So if I show you an image of like Persona 5 Strikers, which did not look good at the time, let's just pop this up, right? Persona 5 Strikers. This game did not look especially... is this the... Yeah, so this is in docked mode, I believe. This image did not look specifically high res. This is about right, jagged edges here, kind of blurry, that kind of thing. This at 720p on a small screen is okay, and then, obviously the frame rate kind of going all over the place. This image stretched to 1080p is awful. Because not only is it stretching it, but because it's trying to upscale it, you get this really weird blob amorphous kind of effect. Let me see, AI upscaling artifacts. There's a really interesting thing that happens when you're trying to upscale things. This is a similar example. It's basically like if you have something that's pixelated, right, and you're trying to AI upscale it. Sometimes, a lot of the time, what will happen is it tries to smooth it out. Other times, what will happen is it, instead of trying to smooth it out, it just kind of it's like bilinear nearest neighbor. Is it nearest neighbor? Neighbor upscaling. Yeah, it's basically like fusing the pixels on top of each other to make a new size, right? And the problem with that is it, like, instead of just being a lower resolution image of what you'd expect it to be, it's like a blob, right? As you can see with normal, it's supposed to be a thing, and then it just smooths it out, and the hand loses all direction, right? It becomes a blob. And that's kind of what's happening with Strikers. The 1080p image is from the 720p image here, stretched to 1080p, isn't just it stretched. It's like losing its conformity of like, this is a person, right? It's losing that because it's like changing where pixels are and nearest neighboring it to other things, and it becomes a mess. And it's really exemplified in this game, where you'd think it would at least try and up-res it to some capacity, and it's not. Another example is Neo, The World Ends With You. This is a game with unlocked frame rate on the Switch, so it runs at 60 FPS consistently when it didn't before, but that is not an upgrade in my mind because, and this is, this is the Switch version, because it has incredibly jaggy, that's the PS4 version. I don't think I'm going to be able to get a Switch version of this game, but the best way I can describe it is this gonna work? Is this like a good representation? That's too blurry. His hair, pretty much, as you can probably see there, his hair gets all jaggedy, and it's fine in this like fixed camera angle perspective of how the game works, like it looks like this. But when it's stretched out to 1080p, it literally just looks like a mess. And because it's doing the nearest neighbor thing, it's like constantly moving. It's like the black like outlines of his hair are just constantly zip zap zooping around, which already didn't look good at the Switch version, and it looks even worse on the Switch 2. So those are really good examples of the upscaling it's trying to do to at least make it a functional image from 720p does not work at all. And so a lot of games are like that. A lot of the games that I've been trying to play are like that. And that's not good, because not only is it hard to show, but it makes some games unplayable. Like, it makes Persona 5 Strikers, until it gets some kind of patch, pretty much unplayable because of how that is operating. And I don't think a lot of people know that, because you'll take a lot of games, and I think a good example is Monster Hunter Stories. which I just bought because it's on sale, double pack for like 35 bucks, right? This game is originally a Switch game, and it ran pretty poorly at 30 FPS and didn't look the best, and then it got a Switch 2, and the Switch 2 does buff it a little bit, right? It does make some of the textures better and run at consistent 60 FPS, which is great. It also improves the load times. Handheld mode, let's see if I can get a good one. Yeah, this thing. Okay, so this grass, this is a bad example, but this grass was considerably worse. Yeah, okay, so like, see this like weird dithering effect where it's like not super straight and how it should be, right? Okay, so apply that to like the entire grass area. Like all this grass you see, like, okay, image, bigger, there. All this grass you see is effectively like fringing, like stair-stepping. Stair-stepping, anti-aliasing. Nope. Anti-aliasing. Let me see if I can, yeah, like this, why, these are horrible. This thing, right, where it's like doot, and the reason it's called stair stepping, not only does it look like steps, but it also frequently happens on steps. Like it kind of looks like what would happen if all the lines of the steps kind of converge and you see the line like moving across. So that's basically what's happening here. And this kind of thing happens to every single piece of grass on this game, and so it just becomes a mess because as you're walking around in handheld mode, it's like flickering and dithering and kind of boo, right, almost like static or snow or something. The best way to describe it, and that's what's happening frequently is all these blades of grass. You can sort of see it a little bit here. It's just kind of a mess. So that's happening because it's still ultimately a 720p image that's trying to be upscaled. A lot of games are like that, as I've said, and it's something that I don't think enough people are kind of paying attention to at this point, especially considering it's very hard to tell beforehand. Like it's quite difficult to check to see what's happening in terms of like where it is, if it's on the eShop or not, if it has a boost of any kind on Switch, because the screenshots look good a lot of the time, and even the motion may look good because they're Switch games, right? They're being showcased on the Switch, but there's nothing to show what the game looks like on your actual Switch 2. The last thing, or the second thing here, is one that I talked about originally on that video, and unfortunately it has come true. I talked in that video and kind of concerningly about the fact that while something like Kirby and the Forgotten Land was getting DLC and had a Switch 2 edition, I was concerned that you were going to need to wait for the DLC to be available in order to buy the upgrade pack, effectively locking the boosted Switch 2 stuff behind a time window on top of just a payment wall. And that came true. Kirby and the Forgotten Land does not run better and looks a decent bit worse on Switch 2 than it does on Switch 1 because you have to effectively wait until August 28th for the Star-Crossed World DLC to drop before you can actually get the Switch 2 version, which to me feels ridiculous. I think what they should have done is, let's say they still lock it behind this thing, let you pre-order, and when you pre-order, it gives you the Nintendo Switch 2 edition part of it now, and then the Star-Crossed World later, effectively like buying a season pass of some kind. I think that would have worked better so that when you get onto it, yes, it's still $20 for at that time what is just a boost, but you're guaranteed the DLC after. And that would have alleviated a lot of the problems. Because right now, as I mentioned, up above here, you have to wait until August for a game that already exists on Switch, that they already are working to make it better. You have to pay for that DLC in order to be able to make this better, right? And I feel like that's ridiculous because that's a time limit. That's not just, oh, we're locking behind a $10 thing. It's like, if the Zelda thing didn't launch, and the Zelda thing was like, yeah, Zelda's becoming better, but you have to wait until December because we're getting the stupid app updated, right? Or something like, it's that kind of thing. And both of those things, the issue with backwards compatibility and the requirements of like DLC locked Switch upgrades are actually happening. And those are two things I hoped didn't. I was hoping that at least a larger quantity of things would be unlocked, and there aren't, and that you wouldn't have to wait for these things, and they are. So those are just kind of two PSAs, is that if you're looking at something like Kirby here, and you're like, oh, I can't wait to play it at better frame rates, I know it's coming, you have to wait for the DLC. And if you're expecting, a bunch of your games to run better and be like, oh my god, this is amazing, again, it's game dependent, but I don't think you're necessarily going to see that happen. You're not necessarily going to see that happen because, as I showed here, of my 224 games, and there's some big ones on here, right? Monster Hunter Stories, Mario and Luigi Brothership is a big one that runs like crap still. Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance still runs like crap. Tiny King still has a ridiculous amount of input latency and lag. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater still doesn't run well at all. Sword Art doesn't work. Syncing, it does work, like it will load. It just looks pretty bad because it's still running 720p. A lot of these. Assassin's Creed Rebel Collection is still poorly. It's still at 30 FPS. Lego TK Drive still looks ridiculous and fuzzy all the time. So yeah, a lot of these just don't work nearly as well as you'd hope they would for this kind of thing. So I just want to, let everyone know that, because it's not something I see really pushed a lot of. So yeah, hopefully that's just kind of like a PSA here. I will have a review on the Switch 2 on my main channel, MacGabs, for you to check out there. If you enjoy this kind of content and want to see more of this stuff on the channel, make sure to like, subscribe, to all that, and I'll see everyone in the next video.